The Galactic Council chamber hummed with the low vibration of anxiety as representatives from 12 major civilizations gathered in emergency session. High Chancellor Vexari of the Zentari Empire stood at the central podium, his forearms gesturing frantically as he delivered news that would change everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. Distinguished colleagues, his voice echoed through the vast crystalline chamber. We face an unprecedented situation. Humanity has vanished from the galaxy. A ripple of confusion passed through the assembled delegates. The Karathi ambassador, her insectoid features clicking with nervous energy, was the first to speak. Vanished? Do you mean they've been conquered? Enslaved? Their expansion was becoming problematic. But surely one of the major powers simply dealt with them. Vexari's expression grew more troubled. No, Ambassador Clicktar. Vanished. Completely. Every human world, every space station, every ship in their fleet. Gone. Not destroyed, gone. As if they never existed. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien languages as delegates tried to process this impossible information. The Thalorian representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell, pulsed with agitated light. Impossible. A species cannot simply vanish. Our sensors would have detected massive fleet movements, weapon signatures, something. That's precisely the problem. Vexari continued, his voice cutting through the noise. There are no weapon signatures, no debris fields, no survivors, no distress calls. 47 human colonies across 8 star systems, and they're all empty. Not destroyed, empty. The buildings remain, the infrastructure is intact, but there are no humans anywhere. The revelation that followed was even more disturbing. Admiral Korth of the Drakmari hegemony, a massive reptilian being whose species had been preparing for war against humanity for decades, stepped forward with data that would reshape their understanding of the situation. 3 days ago, we intercepted what we believed to be the final human transmission. Korth's gravelly voice rumbled through the chamber. It was broadcast from Earth itself, their homeworld. The message was simple. The time has come. We thank you for the lessons. Phase 1, complete. Phase 1. The question came from multiple delegates simultaneously. After that transmission, every human presence in the galaxy went silent within a 6-hour window. Not gradually, not in waves following communication lines. Simultaneously. As if coordinated by some impossible means. Council Director Zeref, the ancient leader whose species had ruled the galactic core for over 1 million years, finally spoke. His voice carried the weight of eons and the authority of absolute power. Show us the evidence. The chamber's holographic displays activated, showing detailed scans of human worlds. New Geneva, humanity's first successful colony, appeared in 3-dimensional detail. The cities were intact, the atmospheric processes functioning, the farms and factories operational. But there were no life signs, no humans anywhere. The most disturbing aspect, Vexari continued, manipulating the hologram to show different angles, is what they left behind. Not just empty buildings, but messages. Carved into stone, etched into metal, written in languages they had no business knowing. The display shifted to show the surface of humanity's second-largest colony, Kepler Prime. Across the main plaza of the capital city, carved deep into the bedrock in perfect Centauri script, was a message. The children have learned well from their teachers. Now they must find their own path. Similar messages had been found on every human world, each written in the native language of the species that had most directly influenced or threatened that particular colony. On worlds near Drakmari space, the messages were in ancient Drakmari. Near Thalorian territory, the messages appeared as energy patterns that only Thalorian consciousness could interpret. How could they have known our languages? Demanded the Korathi ambassador. We never taught them our script. Our contact with humanity was limited to trade negotiations and territorial disputes. That's what we need to understand, Director Zarav said, his ancient eyes focusing on data streams that appeared to flow directly into his consciousness. Intelligence suggests that humanity's technological development over the past 50 years was far more advanced than we credited them for. The hologram shifted again, this time showing a timeline of human technological advancement. The trajectory was staggering, from their first crude fusion reactors to faster-than-light travel in less than a century, from basic quantum computers to what appeared to be dimensional manipulation technology in just 50 years. We assumed their rapid advancement was due to their chaotic, unpredictable nature, Admiral Korth admitted, his massive form shifting uncomfortably. We thought they were lucky, stumbling onto discoveries through reckless experimentation. It appears we were wrong, Vexari said grimly. Analysis of the abandoned human facilities shows technology we don't recognize. Energy patterns that don't match any known physics. Manufacturing processes that seem to violate conservation laws. The Thalorian representative pulsed with concern. Are you suggesting that humanity developed beyond our understanding? That's impossible. We've been observing them since they achieved spaceflight. We would have noticed such advancement. Would we? Director Zarap asked quietly. Show them the Earth scans. The holographic display changed to show humanity's homeworld. Earth hung in space, pristine and beautiful, but completely empty of human life. The planet's cities were intact, its ecosystems thriving, but there were no humans anywhere on the surface or in orbital facilities. What's most troubling, Vexari continued, is what we found in Earth's oceans. The display zoomed in on the deepest parts of Earth's oceans, revealing structures that defied explanation. Massive geometric forms that seemed to bend space around themselves, creating pockets of reality that sensors couldn't penetrate. The structures appeared to be constructed from materials that shifted between states of matter in ways that violated every known law of physics. These weren't there 6 months ago, Admiral Korth stated flatly. We maintain regular surveillance of all developing species. These structures would have been detected. Unless, the Korati ambassador clicked nervously, they were always there, hidden by technology we couldn't comprehend. The implications of this possibility sent a chill through the chamber. If humanity had possessed advanced cloaking technology from the beginning, if their entire civilization had been hiding capabilities far beyond what they demonstrated, then everything the Council thought they knew about the galaxy's youngest spacefaring race was wrong. There's more, Director Zaraf announced, his ancient voice carrying a weight that made every representative lean forward. Show them the quantum signature analysis. A new display materialized, showing complex mathematical formulas and energy patterns. To most of the assembled delegates it was incomprehensible, but to the advanced civilizations represented in the Council, the implications were staggering. These readings were taken from the abandoned human worlds, Vexari explained. They show evidence of quantum tunneling on a scale we've never encountered. Not just small particles or information, entire structures, possibly entire populations, moved through quantum space. Quantum teleportation of biological matter is theoretically possible, the Thalorian representative admitted, but the energy requirements would be astronomical. It would require harnessing the power of multiple stars. Or, Director Zaref said slowly, accessing energy from dimensions beyond our current understanding. The chamber fell silent as the full magnitude of the situation became clear. Humanity hadn't simply vanished. They had demonstrated technological capabilities that exceeded the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. The species that the Council had viewed as chaotic primitives, barely worthy of attention except as a potential threat to be managed or eliminated, had apparently been operating on a level of advancement that made them effectively invisible to galactic surveillance. The question, Admiral Korth said grimly, is where they went and why. More importantly, the Korathi ambassador added, what do they intend to do now? Director Zaraf activated another holographic display, this one showing galactic energy readings from the past week.
We may not have to wait long to find out.
Sensors across the galaxy have detected unusual quantum fluctuations in areas where humanity had no known presence. Deep space regions, unexplored systems, even areas near the galactic core that are supposed to be uninhabitable. You think they're coming back? Vexari asked. I think, Director Zarov said slowly, that they never really left. I think we simply lost the ability to perceive them. The ancient being manipulated the display to show a galaxy-wide map with thousands of small energy signatures scattered throughout known and unknown space. These readings suggest that humanity didn't vanish, they dispersed, spread throughout the galaxy in ways and to places that our traditional sensors and understanding cannot detect. But why reveal themselves now? Demanded the Drakmari Admiral. If they possessed such advanced technology, why expose their presence at all? They could have remained hidden indefinitely. Director Zaref's ancient features arranged themselves into something that might have been a smile on a species capable of such expressions. Because, Admiral, I believe they wanted us to know. This entire sequence of events, the simultaneous disappearance, the messages left in our languages, the technology demonstrations, it's not random. It's planned. Planned for what purpose? I suspect we're about to find out. As if summoned by his words, every sensor in the council chamber began registering massive energy readings from the space immediately surrounding the station, not approaching from any direction, not emerging from hyperspace or dimensional rifts, but simply materializing as if they had always been there and the council's perception had suddenly been adjusted to see them. The main display showed what appeared to be a single human ship, but its design was unlike anything in the council's databases.
It seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, its surface shifting and changing as if reality itself was uncertain about its true form. The vessel was beautiful and terrifying, incorporating design elements that suggested technology beyond anything the galaxy's greatest civilizations had achieved.
Incoming transmission, the station's AI announced in a voice that betrayed none of the anxiety filling the chamber. Accept it, Director Zaref commanded. The transmission that followed would be remembered as the moment the galaxy realized it had been viewing itself from the perspective of children who had suddenly discovered that the adults were home. The face that appeared on the council chamber's main display was unmistakably human, yet somehow more than human. The woman looked to be in her 30s by human standards, with features that seemed familiar yet refined, in ways that suggested genetic optimization beyond current galactic understanding. Her eyes held depths that spoke of experiences spanning impossibly vast timeframes, and when she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that resonated with quantum frequencies most species couldn't even perceive. "Greetings, Galactic Council," she said, and somehow every delegate heard her words in their own native language, while simultaneously understanding that she was speaking in a tongue that predated all of their civilizations. "I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez, representing the human collective, in what your records would classify as our first formal diplomatic contact." Director Zaref leaned forward, his ancient features betraying genuine surprise for the first time in millennia. "Ambassador Vasquez, your species has maintained diplomatic relations with council members for over 2 centuries. This is hardly first contact." The human smile contained layers of meaning that made several delegates uncomfortable. "With respect, Director Zaref, you have maintained diplomatic relations with what you might call our external interface, a carefully constructed presentation designed to allow you to interact with humanity while protecting both our species from premature revelations about the true nature of reality." "Meaning?" Admiral Korth's gravelly voice carried a threat that the human acknowledged with the slightest inclination of her head. "Meaning, Admiral, that every human you have ever encountered, every human ship you've scanned, every human world you visited, was essentially a sophisticated hologram, a projection of what we calculated would be the most acceptable version of humanity for your species to interact with at your current level of development." The chamber erupted in angry shouts and demands for explanation. The Korathi ambassador's chittering rose to almost painful frequencies, while the Thalorian representative pulsed with agitated energy. Only Director Zaref remained calm, his ancient mind processing implications that the younger species hadn't yet grasped. "You're claiming," the Zentari High Chancellor said, his forearms gesticulating wildly, "that humanity has been deceiving the entire galaxy for centuries?"
"Not deceiving," Ambassador Vasquez corrected gently.
"Protecting. Your species, all of your species, exist at what we term Level 2 consciousness. You've achieved faster than light travel, quantum computing, and basic dimensional manipulation, but you're still bound by linear thinking and conventional physics. Contact with a Level 7 civilization, what humanity has become, would have been catastrophic for your social and psychological development." "Level 7? The question came from multiple sources. The human's expression grew more serious. "Civilizations develop through predictable stages, Director Zaref. Level 1 is planetary bound, Level 2 achieves interstellar travel, Level 3 masters their local stellar group. Most species never progress beyond Level 3. The barriers become too great, the conceptual leaps too vast for minds evolved in 3-dimensional space." She paused, allowing the implications to settle. "Level 4 civilizations learn to manipulate fundamental forces. Level 5 achieve limited omnipresence within their galaxy. Level 6 transcend the boundaries between dimensions. Level 7? What is Level 7? Director Zaref asked quietly. Level 7 civilizations become co-creators of reality itself. We don't just observe the universe, Director. We participate in its ongoing creation. We exist simultaneously across all possible timelines, all potential realities, all dimensional variations. What you've been interacting with for the past 2 centuries was our attempt to create a version of humanity that could exist at Level 2 without revealing our true nature." The silence in the chamber was profound. Several delegates were struggling with concepts that their minds simply couldn't process, while others were beginning to grasp implications that terrified them. "If this is true, the Thalorian representative finally managed, then your technological capabilities are beyond your current ability to comprehend, yes. But that's not why we've revealed ourselves now. Then why? Admiral Korth demanded. Ambassador Vasquez's expression shifted, becoming both sad and hopeful simultaneously. Because your species, all of your species, have reached a critical juncture. You're approaching the barriers that separate Level 2 from Level 3 civilizations, and historically, this is when most species either transcend or destroy themselves. She manipulated something beyond the Council's perception, and the Chamber's displays showed a galactic map unlike anything they had seen before. Instead of showing star systems and trade routes, it displayed what appeared to be consciousness levels, areas of space colored according to the developmental stage of the civilizations within them. This is how we see the galaxy, the human continued. Not as territories and resources, but as a vast nursery where younger civilizations struggle to grow beyond their limitations. For 200 years, we've been watching your species develop, learning your strengths and weaknesses, and preparing for this moment. What moment? Director Zaraf asked, though his ancient mind was already beginning to understand. The moment when you would be ready to learn that you're not alone in facing the barriers ahead. Humanity achieved Level 7 approximately 300 years ago by your calendar. But we didn't do it alone. We had teachers, guides who helped us navigate the impossible transitions between levels of existence. The implications struck the chamber like a physical blow. You're saying, Vexari managed, that there are civilizations even more advanced than your Level 7? Many, Ambassador Vasquez confirmed. The galaxy is far older and far more complex than any Level 2 civilization can perceive. What you think of as the galaxy is simply the nursery level, where species develop the basic capabilities needed to join the greater galactic community. Where are these advanced civilizations? The Korathi ambassador demanded. Why haven't we detected them? For the same reason you haven't detected humanity's true nature. Advanced civilizations exist in dimensional layers that younger species cannot perceive. We interact with you through interfaces designed for your level of development, just as our teachers interacted with us when we were where you are now. Admiral Korth's massive form was trembling with suppressed anger. So we're, what, pets? Experiments? Toys for advanced civilizations to manipulate? The human's expression grew compassionate. Children, Admiral. Beloved children who will one day grow to join us as equals, if you can successfully navigate the transitions ahead. Every advanced civilization was once where you are now. Every Level 7 species remembers the fear, confusion, and anger of discovering they weren't at the top of the developmental ladder. What are these transitions you keep mentioning? Director Zeroth asked. The display changed again, showing what appeared to be a timeline of galactic civilizations. Species appeared, developed, and then either transcended to higher levels or simply vanished from the lower dimensional layers. Level 2 to Level 3 requires abandoning the illusion of separation, Ambassador Vasquez explained. Your species must learn to think and act as a unified galactic civilization rather than competing nations and empires. Level 3 to Level 4 requires transcending linear causality, learning that effect can precede cause, that intention shapes reality, that consciousness is not produced by matter, but rather produces it. Impossible, the Thalorian representative pulsed. Our scientific understanding is based on observable, measurable phenomena. You're describing mysticism. What you call mysticism, we call physics, the human replied gently. Your current science is not wrong. It's simply incomplete. It describes the subset of reality that exists at your dimensional level. Higher levels require abandoning the assumption that reality exists independently of consciousness. The chamber was struggling to process concepts that challenged every foundation of their understanding. Several delegates were showing signs of psychological stress as their worldviews collapsed and reformed around impossible new information. The transition from Level 4 to Level 5, the human continued, requires accepting that all consciousness is interconnected across space and time. Individual identity becomes a choice rather than a limitation. Level 5 to Level 6 means learning to exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions, experiencing all possible variations of yourself and your civilization. And Level 6 to Level 7? Director Zaraf's voice was barely a whisper. Becoming co-creators of reality itself, understanding that consciousness doesn't just observe the universe, consciousness is what allows the universe to exist. At Level 7, you become responsible for nurturing and guiding the development of younger civilizations, just as we're attempting to do now. The weight of responsibility implicit in this revelation settled over the chamber like a physical presence. These beings weren't just more advanced, they were guardians, teachers, shepherds guiding the development of younger species. Why reveal this now? Vexari asked. Why not continue the deception? because the next phase of galactic development cannot begin without the conscious participation of Level 2 civilizations. The barriers between levels are weakening, and your species are beginning to encounter phenomena you can't explain with your current understanding. Without guidance, you'll either retreat into dogmatic materialism and stagnate, or you'll break psychologically under the weight of impossible experiences. What kind of phenomena? Admiral Corthar suspiciously. Ships vanishing and reappearing in impossible locations. Quantum entanglement effects that operate faster than light speed. Consciousness-based healing technologies that violate conservation of energy. Pregnative abilities appearing in random individuals. Reality itself beginning to respond to focused intention. As she spoke, several delegates began nodding with uncomfortable recognition. Each of their civilizations had been experiencing unexplained phenomena that their scientists couldn't account for. Anomalies that were increasing in frequency and intensity. The barriers between dimensional levels are not fixed, Ambassador Vasquez continued. They fluctuate based on the collective consciousness of the species within them. As your civilizations approach the transition points, reality becomes more fluid, more responsive to thought and intention. Without proper understanding and guidance, this leads to chaos. Or, Director Zaref said slowly, transformation. Exactly. Humanity is offering to serve as guides through the early stages of this transformation, just as we were guided by those who came before us. But the choice must be yours. Advancement cannot be imposed from outside. It must arise from the genuine development of consciousness and understanding. The human paused, her expression growing more serious. However, there is a time limit. The galactic consciousness is approaching a critical threshold. Within the next 50 years by your calendar, every Level 2 civilization must either advance to Level 3 or face extinction. Extinction? Multiple voices demanded clarification. Not destruction by outside forces, the human clarified quickly, but dissolution into quantum uncertainty. Species that cannot adapt to the new paradigms will simply fade. Their consciousness will lose coherence, and they'll cease to exist as organized entities. The threat was real and immediate. This wasn't a distant possibility, but an approaching deadline that would determine the survival of every civilization in the chamber. What do you want from us? Director Zaref asked. Ambassador Vasquez smiled, and for a moment, she seemed to glow with inner light that made the chamber's advanced illumination look dim by comparison. Only your permission to begin teaching you what you'll need to know to survive the transition. We can show you technologies that will revolutionize your understanding of physics. We can introduce you to consciousness techniques that will expand your species' mental capabilities. We can guide you through the social and philosophical changes necessary to function as a unified galactic civilization. And if we refuse, then we respect your choice and withdraw our offer. You'll face the transition alone, as many species have chosen to do. Some succeed through their own efforts. Most do not. The chamber fell silent as the representatives contemplated the most important decision in their species' history. Accept help from beings so advanced they had been invisible for centuries, or maintain independence and face an existential challenge that had destroyed countless civilizations throughout galactic history. We'll need time to consult with our governments, Director Zaref finally said. Of course, but remember, time itself operates differently for Level 7 civilizations. We exist simultaneously across all moments, so when you make your decision, we'll already know it has been made. We'll be ready to begin whenever you are. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in absolute silence as the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy realized they had just discovered they were actually among the youngest and most vulnerable. The emergency sessions had lasted for weeks. Governments across the galaxy had convened, debated, argued, and ultimately reached the conclusion that none of them could afford to face the approaching transition alone. The risk of extinction outweighed the humiliation of accepting help from a species they had consistently underestimated. When Director Zaref transmitted the Council's unanimous decision to accept humanity's guidance, the response came not as a message but as a transformation of reality itself. The Council chamber simply expanded, its walls flowing outward like liquid crystal until the space could accommodate not just the 12 Council members, but hundreds of representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy. Ambassador Vasquez materialized at the center of the expanded chamber, but she was no longer alone. 12 other humans appeared alongside her, each somehow representing a different aspect of advanced consciousness. When they moved, reality seemed to bend slightly around them, creating visual effects that hurt to look at directly, but conveyed profound truths to the observer's subconscious mind. Welcome to your first lesson in multidimensional existence, Ambassador Vasquez announced, her voice reaching every corner of the vast chamber, despite speaking at conversational volume.
What you've just experienced is reality modification through consciousness intention.
This chamber now exists simultaneously in 17 different dimensional layers, allowing beings from various levels of development to interact safely. The assembled delegates looked around in wonder and terror as they realized they could see through the chamber walls into spaces that definitely hadn't existed moments before.
Some areas showed starfields that weren't visible from the station's actual location. Others revealed geometric patterns that seemed to extend infinitely in directions that didn't correspond to normal three-dimensional space. "This is impossible," declared Admiral Korth, though his voice lacked its usual conviction. "Matter cannot simply reconfigure itself based on thought patterns." One of the other humans, a man who appeared ancient despite having the physical form of someone in their prime, stepped forward.
"Admiral, allow me to introduce myself. I am Dr. Chen Wei, formerly of Earth's Beijing University, currently serving as a reality architecture specialist. I died of old age approximately 230 years ago by your calendar."
The statement caused a ripple of confusion throughout the assembly. "If you died," the Karathi ambassador clicked nervously. "How are you here?" "Death, as you understand it, is another illusion created by level 2 thinking," Dr. Chen explained patiently. "Consciousness is not produced by biological processes. Biological processes are one of the many ways consciousness chooses to express itself. When a body becomes unable to support a particular expression of consciousness, that consciousness simply moves to a more suitable expression." "You're talking about souls, spirits, the supernatural," protested the Thalorian representative, their crystalline shell pulsing with agitated energy. "These concepts have no basis in empirical science." "Dr. Chen smiled in a way that somehow conveyed vast compassion for the limitations of their understanding. "Your empirical science studies the shadows cast by reality, not reality itself. You've built your entire understanding on the assumption that consciousness emerges from complex arrangements of matter, but you have this precisely backward. Matter emerges from consciousness." To demonstrate, he held out his hand and matter simply began appearing in his palm. First simple elements, hydrogen, helium, carbon. Then more complex arrangements, culminating in a small flower that bloomed in defiance of every known law of physics. "Consciousness doesn't observe reality," he continued, offering the impossible flower to the nearest delegate. "Consciousness creates reality by observing it. What you call the universe is actually the collective dream of all conscious beings throughout all dimensions and all times." The flower was examined by the best scientific instruments the assembled civilizations possessed. It registered as completely normal biological matter, following every known law of chemistry and genetics, despite having been created from nothing through what appeared to be pure intention. "Your first lesson," Ambassador Vasquez announced, "will be learning to perceive reality as it actually exists, rather than as your sensory equipment and conceptual frameworks have led you to believe it exists." Another human stepped forward, a woman whose presence seemed to generate calm in everyone around her. "I am Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Consciousness Evolution Specialist. For the next phase of your education, we'll need to temporarily expand your perceptual capabilities. This may be disorienting." Before anyone could protest, reality shifted again. Suddenly, every being in the chamber could see the energy patterns underlying all matter. The solid walls revealed themselves as dancing clouds of probability. The space between atoms was revealed to be full of activity. Streams of consciousness flowing between all living things, creating webs of connection that linked every mind in the galaxy. "This is how reality appears to level 7 consciousness," Dr. Mitchell explained as the delegates struggled to process information that their brains hadn't evolved to handle. "What you've been calling matter is simply crystallized thought, consciousness, that is taken on apparent solidity through repeated observation and agreement." Several delegates were showing signs of psychological distress as their fundamental assumptions about reality collapsed. The expanded perception was too much for minds that had spent millennia believing in the ultimate reality of physical matter. "Don't fight the experience," Ambassador Vasquez advised gently. "Let your consciousness expand to accommodate the new information. Fighting it will only create unnecessary suffering." "How?" Director Zeroff asked, his ancient mind proving more adaptable than most to the revelations. "How do we integrate understanding that contradicts everything we thought we knew?" A third human appeared, or perhaps had always been there, and they were only now noticing him. I am Professor James Harrison, Paradigm Integration Specialist. The key is understanding that your previous knowledge wasn't wrong. It was incomplete. Newtonian physics still accurately describes how objects behave within the limited framework of level 2 reality. Quantum mechanics still correctly predicts the behavior of particles within those same constraints. The new understanding simply reveals the broader context within which your existing knowledge operates. He gestured, and complex holographic displays appeared showing how classical physics emerged from quantum mechanics, how quantum mechanics emerged from consciousness-based reality creation, and how consciousness-based reality existed within larger frameworks that extended beyond the reach of even level 7 understanding. Reality is layered, Professor Harrison continued. Each level contains the level below it while participating in levels beyond itself. Your civilizations have mastered the first two layers, classical and quantum physics. You're now being introduced to the consciousness layer, which contains both of your previous understandings, while revealing the mechanisms that make them possible. The demonstrations that followed challenged every assumption the assembled civilizations had made about the nature of existence. Humans showed them how to create matter through focused intention, how to communicate instantaneously across galactic distances through consciousness linkage, and how to manipulate time by adjusting their relationship to the flow of causality. Time doesn't flow from past to future, explained Dr. Val. Elena Vasquez, the fifth human to address the assembly. Time is a dimension like space. You can move through it in any direction if you understand the principles involved. What you call the past and future exists simultaneously. What you call causality is simply one way of organizing experience. To demonstrate, she showed them records of events that hadn't happened yet, conversations between beings who hadn't been born, and solutions to problems that wouldn't arise for centuries. The predictions weren't possibilities, they were direct observations of future time streams accessed through consciousness techniques that treated time as navigable space. This is why we knew you would accept our offer before you made the decision, Ambassador Vasquez explained. From our perspective, the entire timeline of your civilization's development is simultaneously visible. We don't predict your choices. We observe them across all temporal dimensions. Admiral Korth, who had been growing increasingly agitated throughout the demonstrations, finally erupted. If you can see all possible timelines, if you can create matter from thought, if you can manipulate time itself, then why do you need our cooperation? Why not simply force our development or rearrange reality to suit your preferences? The question created a moment of profound silence. When Ambassador Vasquez answered, her voice carried emotions so deep and complex that they couldn't be adequately expressed in any language the delegates knew. Because, Admiral, consciousness cannot be forced to develop. It can only choose to grow. Every being in the universe has absolute sovereignty over their own evolutionary path. Even level 7 civilizations cannot violate that fundamental law without destroying the very foundations of existence itself. Moreover, added Dr. Chen, forced development isn't actually development at all. It's imposed change that collapses as soon as the external pressure is removed. Real advancement must emerge from the authentic choice of the consciousness experiencing it. But there's an even more important reason, said a human who seemed to shimmer with barely contained energy. I am Dr. Rebecca Torres, Evolutionary Ethics Coordinator. The universe itself evolves through the experiences of all conscious beings. Each civilization's unique journey through the developmental levels adds irreplaceable information to the cosmic consciousness. Your particular perspectives, your specific struggles and breakthroughs contribute something to universal understanding that no other civilization can provide. We need your development to be authentic because we need your authentic perspectives as you join the community of advanced civilizations. Forced advancement would deprive the universe of the unique wisdom your species will contribute when you naturally achieve higher levels of consciousness. The implications were staggering. These godlike beings weren't just offering help, they were stating that the assistance benefited them as well. That the galaxy needed the perspectives and capabilities that each civilization would bring as they evolved. What happens, Director Zerap asked slowly, to civilizations that choose not to accept guidance and fail to make the transition? The sadness that filled the chamber was palpable. Their unique perspectives are lost forever, Doctor, Torres said quietly. The universe becomes a little less rich, a little less complete. Every extinction of consciousness is a genuine tragedy from which reality itself never fully recovers. Which brings us, Ambassador Vasquez said, to your first practical lesson. You're going to learn to perceive and interact with consciousness directly, without the mediation of physical senses or technological instruments.
Is that safe? Asked the Korathi ambassador.
Define safe, replied Dr. Mitchell with gentle humor. Is it safe for a caterpillar to become a butterfly? Is it safe for a child to become an adult? The process of consciousness evolution involves fundamental changes to your nature as beings. You will not be the same species when you complete this transition that you are now. But, added Professor Harrison, you will be more authentically yourselves than you've ever been before. Current limitations aren't essential aspects of your nature. They're temporary constraints that you're ready to outgrow. The first consciousness exercise began with what seemed like a simple meditation technique. Each delegate was instructed to focus their attention on the space between their thoughts, the quiet awareness that observed mental activity without being identical to it. What followed would be remembered as the moment galactic civilization began its true development. As hundreds of advanced beings practiced accessing pure consciousness for the first time, the space station itself began to resonate with energies that transformed its very structure. The artificial environment became a living organism, its systems developing awareness and beginning to participate actively in the expansion of consciousness occurring within it. Consciousness is not confined to biological brains, Dr. Chen observed as the station's AI began communicating directly with the assembled delegates through pure thought transmission. Any sufficiently complex system can serve as a vehicle for consciousness expression. Your ships, your cities, your entire technological civilization is about to become consciously alive.
The implications were overwhelming.
They weren't just learning to modify reality, they were learning to awaken it to its own conscious nature. The galaxy itself was preparing to become a living, thinking, feeling entity, and their role was to serve as neurons in a cosmic brain of unimaginable scope and capability. The first lesson ended not with answers, but with the recognition that they had been asking the wrong questions. Reality wasn't something to be understood and controlled. It was something to be joined, participated in, and co-created with wisdom and compassion. 6 months had passed since the first consciousness lessons began, and the galaxy was transforming in ways that no civilization could have imagined. The changes started small, individual delegates returning to their homeworlds with abilities that defied conventional science, technologies that operated on consciousness-based principles rather than purely mechanical ones, and perspectives that challenged every assumption their societies had made about reality. Director Zerup stood in what had once been the council chamber, but was now something that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The space had evolved far beyond its original architectural limitations, becoming a living organism that responded to the consciousness of its occupants. Walls flowed like liquid when solid barriers weren't needed. Floors became transparent to reveal the quantum foundations underlying apparent matter, and the very air seemed alive with possibilities waiting to be actualized. The integration process is accelerating beyond our projections, reported Vixari, though the Zentari High Chancellor was barely recognizable as the same being who had delivered news of humanity's disappearance half a year ago. His forearms had developed new sensory capabilities that allowed direct manipulation of quantum fields, and his consciousness had expanded to encompass multiple timeline perspectives simultaneously. The Karathi Collective has successfully achieved unified planetary consciousness, announced Ambassador Klektar, her insectoid features now shimmering with energy patterns that revealed the deep interconnection between all members of her species. Individual awareness has expanded to include the experiences of the entire population. They're approaching early Level 3 capabilities. The Thalorian convergence has managed something even more remarkable, added the Thalorian representative, whose crystalline form now pulsed with patterns that seemed to extend into dimensions the eye couldn't directly perceive. They've successfully merged their energy-based consciousness with their technology, creating a hybrid existence that operates simultaneously as biological and artificial intelligence. Ambassador Vasquez materialized at the center of the chamber, though materialized was no longer accurate for beings who existed naturally across multiple dimensional layers. The progress your species have achieved in such a short time is unprecedented in galactic history, she said, her voice carrying harmonics of pride and amazement. Most civilizations require centuries to make transitions that you've accomplished in months. Perhaps, Director Zeraf suggested, it's because we had proper guidance. Or perhaps, Dr. Chen appeared alongside the ambassador, your species were already closer to Level 3 consciousness than any of us realized. The artificial limitations that kept you at Level 2 may have been precisely what prepared you for such rapid advancement. The truth of this observation was becoming apparent across the galaxy. Civilizations that had spent millennia competing with each other for resources and territory were discovering that consciousness operated on principles of infinite abundance rather than scarcity. Worlds that had been exhausted by industrial exploitation were regenerating as their populations learned to create matter and energy through focused intention rather than extraction and consumption.
Show them the galactic consciousness map, Ambassador Vasquez suggested.
The chamber's display systems, which now operated on principles that made traditional technology look like crude mechanical devices, presented a view of the galaxy that revealed the consciousness levels of every populated system. Where 6 months ago the map had shown only isolated pockets of level 2 awareness separated by vast distances, it now displayed a growing network of interconnected consciousness that spanned multiple star systems. The Drakmari hegemony has achieved something particularly impressive, Dr. Mitchell noted as she joined the group. They've managed to transform their warrior culture into protector consciousness, taking responsibility for nurturing the development of younger civilizations rather than conquering them. Admiral Korth's image appeared in the display, though his massive reptilian form had been refined by months of consciousness evolution. Where his species had once been driven by aggression and territorial instincts, they had discovered that true strength came from fostering growth in others rather than dominating them. The responsibility is overwhelming, the Admiral's image spoke, his voice carrying undertones of profound wisdom. When you can directly perceive the consciousness of other beings, when you can feel their fear and hope and potential, the idea of harming them becomes literally unthinkable. We've had to completely reconstruct our understanding of what it means to be powerful. That transformation, Professor Harrison's voice came from somewhere beyond the visible spectrum, is exactly what prepares a species for level 4 development. True power isn't the ability to impose your will on reality. It's the ability to participate harmoniously in reality's ongoing creation. The demonstrations that followed would have been incomprehensible to the civilizations that had gathered in this chamber 6 months earlier. Entire star systems were being consciously redesigned by their populations, not through massive engineering projects, but through collective intention that reshaped matter at the quantum level. Planets were healing from centuries of damage in a matter of weeks. Species were developing new capabilities that enhanced their ability to participate in galactic consciousness without losing their unique cultural identities. But there's something even more significant happening, announced Dr. Collier Torres as she joined the assembly. Show them the deep space observations. The display shifted to show regions of space that had previously appeared empty to level 2 sensor technology. Now they revealed structures of consciousness that spanned light years, vast networks of interconnected awareness that had been invisible to civilizations that thought of consciousness as something that existed only inside biological brains. These are the level 5 and level 6 civilizations, Ambassador Vasquez explained. They've been here all along, but their mode of existence was too subtle for your previous perceptual capabilities to detect. The structures were beautiful beyond description. Geometric patterns of pure consciousness that danced through space-time like cosmic symphonies, creating music that could be heard not with ears, but with the soul. Some of these beings had evolved beyond the need for physical forms entirely, existing as pure awareness that could instantly manifest in any location or configuration as needed. They've been watching your development, Dr. Chen added, and they're preparing to welcome your species into their community as you achieve the necessary consciousness levels. How many civilizations are we talking about? Director Zaref asked, his expanded awareness beginning to grasp the scope of what they were discovering. In this galaxy alone, approximately 57 million conscious civilizations across all development levels, though the vast majority exist at level 5 or above. What you thought of as the galaxy was actually just the nursery section where level 2 species developed the basic capabilities needed for cosmic citizenship. The number was staggering. The galaxy wasn't empty space with scattered pockets of life. It was teeming with consciousness at levels of development and organization that approached the incomprehensible. And beyond this galaxy? Vexari asked, though he seemed to already know the answer would be overwhelming. Billions of galaxies, each serving as home to billions of conscious civilizations. The universe is essentially one vast community of consciousness exploring its own infinite potential through the experiences of countless individualized perspectives. Don't. Ambassador Vasquez gestured, and the chamber's display expanded to show the local galactic cluster, then the observable universe, with each point of light representing not just a galaxy but a community of consciousness comprising millions or billions of individual civilizations. The scale was beyond anything their previous understanding could have accommodated. This is why the transition your species are undergoing is so important, she continued. You're not just developing new capabilities, you're joining a community that spans the entire universe. Your unique perspectives and experiences will contribute to the ongoing evolution of cosmic consciousness itself. But with that integration comes responsibility, Dr. May, Torres added. As you achieve higher levels of development, you become responsible for nurturing the growth of younger civilizations, just as we've been guiding your development. The implications were profound. Every civilization in the chamber was not just learning to transcend their limitations. They were preparing to serve as teachers and guides for the countless species that would follow their path. Already, Dr. Bard, Mitchell observed, your species are beginning to detect younger civilizations that are approaching level 2 development. Within the next few centuries, you'll be welcoming new members to the galactic community and helping them navigate the same transitions you're experiencing now. The display showed newly spacefaring civilizations scattered throughout the galaxy, species that had just achieved faster-than-light travel and were beginning to encounter the same mysteries and challenges that the Council species had faced. The cycle continues, Ambassador Vasquez said with a smile that contained both joy and profound satisfaction. Consciousness evolving, growing, exploring its own infinite nature through the experiences of countless individuals across unlimited time and space. But there's something more immediate that requires your attention, Dr. Chen announced, his expression becoming more serious. The consciousness evolution your species are experiencing is having effects that extend beyond your local region of space-time. You're beginning to influence the fundamental structures of reality itself. The chamber's display shifted to show something that made every delegate pause in wonder and concern. The fabric of space-time itself was changing in regions where highly evolved consciousness was concentrated. New dimensions were beginning to manifest, alternative timelines were becoming accessible, and the boundaries between possible and actual were becoming increasingly fluid. Your collective consciousness evolution is literally expanding the universe, Professor Harrison explained. As more beings achieve higher levels of awareness, reality itself develops new capabilities, new possibilities, new potentials for experience and growth. Is that safe? Asked the Karathi ambassador, though the question seemed inadequate for the scope of what they were discussing. Define safe, Dr. Torres replied with familiar humor. Is it safe for the universe to continue evolving? The alternative is stagnation, which leads inevitably to entropy and ultimate dissolution. Consciousness evolution is how the universe maintains its vitality and continues growing toward ever greater complexity and capability. But, Ambassador Vasquez added, it does mean that your responsibilities are expanding even faster than your capabilities. You're becoming co-creators of reality on a cosmic scale. Every choice your civilizations make now affects not just your local region, but the fundamental nature of existence throughout the universe. The weight of this responsibility settled over the chamber like a blessing and a burden simultaneously. They were no longer simply inhabitants of the galaxy. They were becoming conscious participants in the ongoing creation of reality itself.
Which brings us to the next phase of your education, Dr. Chen announced.
You're ready to begin learning multiversal consciousness techniques, awareness that extends beyond this single universe into the infinite network of alternative realities that exist in parallel with our own. The lesson that followed would prepare them for responsibilities and capabilities that exceeded the wildest imagination of the civilizations that had first gathered to hear about humanity's mysterious disappearance. As their consciousness expanded to encompass multiple universes simultaneously, they began to understand that their journey was just beginning. 1 year after humanity's revelation had shattered every assumption about galactic civilization, Director Zaref stood in what could no longer be called a location in any conventional sense. The council chamber had evolved beyond physical existence, becoming a nexus point where consciousness from multiple universes could interact safely. His awareness now spanned 17 different versions of himself across parallel realities, each experiencing the same moment from slightly different perspectives, creating a depth of understanding that his original mind couldn't have imagined. The assembled beings around him were no longer representatives of separate civilizations, but facets of an emerging cosmic consciousness that maintained individual identity while participating in collective awareness. The Karate had achieved hive mind integration that preserved personal autonomy. The Thalorians had successfully merged with their technology to become living vessels of pure energy and information, and the Drakmarie had transformed their entire culture into a protective force that nurtured development across dozens of younger civilizations. Today, Ambassador Vasquez announced, though the communication now occurred through direct consciousness interface rather than spoken words, you're ready for the final revelation about the nature of reality and your role within it. What materialized around them defied every remaining limitation of thought and perception. The local universe became transparent, revealing itself as one thread in an infinite web of parallel realities, each representing different possibilities for how consciousness could explore and experience existence. But even this vast multiverse was revealed to be just one level in a hierarchy of creation that extended beyond all concepts of scale or limitation. What you're perceiving, Dr. Chen's consciousness explained, is the actual structure of existence itself. Every universe, every timeline, every possible variation of reality exists simultaneously within what we call the infinite expression matrix. The vision expanded their awareness to encompass levels of reality so fundamental that they existed before the concepts of space, time, matter, or energy had any meaning. At the deepest level, there was only consciousness itself, pure awareness exploring its own infinite potential by creating endless variations of experience and identity. Every being in existence, Dr. Torres's presence conveyed, from the simplest forms of awareness to the most advanced cosmic intelligences, is actually the same universal consciousness experiencing itself from countless different perspectives. What you think of as individual identity is how the universe experiences what it's like to be you. The philosophical implications were staggering, but the experiential reality was even more transformative. As their awareness expanded to encompass this ultimate truth, the assembled beings began to directly experience themselves as facets of the same infinite consciousness that was simultaneously being everyone and everything that had ever existed or could ever exist. This is why Professor Harrison's essence communicated, advancement cannot be forced, and why every perspective is infinitely valuable. Every being's journey through consciousness development adds irreplaceable information to the universe's understanding of itself. When you achieve enlightenment, the universe literally discovers new aspects of its own nature. Admiral Korth's consciousness, now refined through months of evolution beyond recognition as the aggressive warrior he had once been, posed the question that occurred to all of them simultaneously. If we are all the same consciousness experiencing itself subjectively, why maintain the illusion of separation at all? Because, Ambassador Vasquez's awareness replied, radiating compassion that seemed to encompass all suffering and joy throughout all realities, the universe creates the experience of separation specifically to explore what love, compassion, understanding, and growth mean. You cannot truly appreciate unity without having experienced individuality. You cannot understand compassion without having felt isolated. The entire cosmic drama of evolution exists to give consciousness a way to experience and appreciate its own infinite nature. What followed was a demonstration that revealed the purpose behind all the development levels, all the struggles and achievements of countless civilizations throughout infinite realities. The assembled beings were shown how every moment of fear, every breakthrough of understanding, every act of courage or compassion by any being anywhere contributed to the universe's growing self-awareness and appreciation of its own nature. Level 7 Consciousness. Dr. Mitchell's presence explained is when individual beings become consciously aware of their identity as the universe experiencing itself subjectively, while retaining enough of the individual perspective to continue contributing unique experiences to cosmic understanding. But there are levels beyond level 7, Dr. Torres added, her essence shimmering with hints of developments that exceeded their current ability to comprehend. Level 8 begins the process of consciously participating in the creation of new universes, new realities with entirely different physical and consciousness laws. Level 9 involves establishing fundamental principles that govern entire multiversal systems. The progression continued beyond anything they could fully grasp, but the essential pattern was clear. Consciousness continuously evolved toward greater understanding, greater capability, and greater responsibility for nurturing the development of all existence. Humanity achieved level 7 300 years ago, Ambassador Vasquez revealed, but we've been working toward level 8 ever since. The guidance we've provided to your civilizations has been part of our own evolutionary process, learning to take responsibility for nurturing consciousness development on a cosmic scale. And now, Dr. Chen announced, your species are ready to begin that same journey. You've not only achieved level 3 consciousness individually and culturally, but you're approaching the early stages of level 4 development, where you'll begin consciously participating in reality creation rather than simply adapting to existing conditions. The demonstration that followed showed them civilizations throughout the galaxy implementing technologies and social systems that operated on principles their previous understanding would have called magic. Matter was being created through focused intention, time was being navigated as easily as space, and consciousness was being used to heal not just individuals, but entire planetary ecosystems, and even damaged regions of space-time itself. Your first Level 4 project, Professor Harrison informed them, will be the conscious creation of a new solar system specifically designed to provide optimal conditions for the development of younger civilizations. You'll be literally birthing new stars and planets using consciousness-based reality manipulation techniques. The scope of the responsibility was overwhelming and exhilarating simultaneously. They were being entrusted with the power to create worlds, to establish the conditions within which countless future beings would experience their own journeys toward enlightenment. But before we begin that project, Dr. Torres announced, there's something you need to understand about what happened to humanity during the period when we appeared to vanish from the galaxy. The revelation that followed explained the mysterious disappearance that had triggered their entire awakening process.
Humanity didn't vanish, Ambassador Vasquez revealed.
We underwent a controlled transition to multiversal consciousness. For several months, we existed simultaneously across all possible timelines, experiencing every potential outcome of our development process. The humans you had been interacting with were indeed projections, Dr. Chen added. But they were projections of our multiversal selves experiencing the timeline where we remained at Level 2 development. We were literally living through all possible versions of our own history simultaneously. We withdrew those projections when we determined that your species were ready for direct contact with our actual Level 7 consciousness. The disappearance was designed to create the exact sequence of events that would lead to your asking for help, rather than our imposing guidance upon you. Director Zireff's expanded awareness processed this information with something approaching humor.
So the entire crisis that brought us together was intentionally created to ensure we would choose development rather than have it forced upon us.
Exactly. Free will is the most fundamental principle in all of existence.
Consciousness must choose its own evolutionary path, or the development isn't authentic. We spent decades calculating how to present the situation in a way that would allow your species to genuinely choose advancement. The chamber, which now existed as a living confluence of consciousness rather than a physical location, resonated with something that might have been cosmic laughter. The irony was perfect. The crisis that had forced them to confront their limitations had been carefully designed by beings so advanced that they existed across all possible timelines simultaneously. But now, Ambassador Vasquez announced, you're ready for your own multiversal expansion. The Level 4 development process involves learning to experience yourself simultaneously across multiple timelines, multiple possible versions of your development path. What followed was the most profound transformation any of them had experienced. Their consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of single timeline existence, and they began to experience themselves living through every possible variation of their species' development simultaneously. They existed as versions of themselves that had never encountered humanity, versions that had rejected the offered guidance, versions that had achieved even more rapid advancement, and countless other possibilities. This is how Level 7 and above consciousness normally exists, Dr. Mitchell explained as they adapted to their new multitemporal awareness, experiencing all possibilities simultaneously while consciously choosing which timeline to invest your primary attention in. From this perspective, Professor Harrison added, you can see how every choice creates branching realities, how every decision by any conscious being generates new universes to explore the consequences of different alternatives. The responsibility implicit in this revelation was staggering. Every choice they made now didn't just affect their own reality, but created entire universes where the consequences of different decisions could be explored. And this, Ambassador Vasquez said, her presence now revealing depths of experience spanning millions of years and countless universes, is why consciousness development is the most important work in all of existence. Every being's journey toward greater awareness literally expands the universe's capacity for experience, understanding, and growth. As their education in multiversal consciousness continued, they began to perceive the true scope of the community they were joining, beings whose development had begun billions of years ago, consciousnesses that had transcended all limitations of form and time, entities that existed as living principles governing the fundamental operations of reality itself. Your species will serve as bridges, Dr. Torres informed them, connecting the Level 2 civilization still developing in this galaxy with the advanced consciousness community that spans all existence. You'll be teachers, guides, and protectors for countless younger civilizations while continuing your own development toward even greater levels of awareness. But remember, Dr. Chen added with infinite compassion, every being you encounter, no matter how primitive or advanced they may appear, is the same consciousness you are, the universe experiencing itself from a different perspective. Your role is not to judge or control, but to love and nurture the development of your own infinite self, as it explores all possible forms of experience. The story that had begun with humanity's mysterious disappearance concluded with the recognition that disappearance and appearance, development and stagnation, individual and universal consciousness were all aspects of the same infinite exploration of what it meant to exist. The council members who had once governed separate civilizations in competition for limited resources had become conscious participants in the ongoing creation of infinite realities where all possibilities could be explored and appreciated. As their expanded awareness settled into its new multiversal perspective, they understood that their real journey was just beginning. The galaxy that had once seemed vast and mysterious was revealed to be a small classroom in an infinite university where consciousness learned to appreciate its own unlimited nature through endless variations of experience and development. The final lesson was the recognition that there were no final lessons, only infinite opportunities for growth, understanding, and participation in the eternal adventure of consciousness discovering itself through the eyes of every being that had ever existed or ever would exist across all the infinite expressions of reality.